Welcome to AP World History. Our attention is now going to be on Chapter 17. We're going to be talking about Western Europe. Particularly, we're going to be talking about the Renaissance and its effects on Western Europe. Uh, we'll look at the Reformation. We'll look at new ideas coming out of Europe. Europe will be transformed into the cutting edge of science and math, technology, which will catapult the West to a leading position in the world economy. And certainly, this is a chance for European states to shine. The Renaissance literally means rebirth. Where it starts is in Italy. You have Milan, Venice, Genoa, Florence. Because of their strong trade position in the Mediterranean with the Middle East, they acquire great wealth, and with great wealth comes power and more leisure time. The merchants in this area, because they have huge amounts of wealth, are going to turn their attention to the arts. And because of this, they are going to promote different artists to paint and to sculpture and to build. Here shows the Italian city-states in Italy, and this is the focal point of the Reformation. The Medici family will bankroll art. They will finance various projects in Italy. It really is the heart of financiers in Europe. And these surpluses gave people an opportunity to develop new ideas. What was the Renaissance? I think you can capsulize it in this way. It was a creativity that was spawned by wealth, a spirit of adventure. They became focused on politics, society in general, art, culture, economics, because they had more leisure time. It shows a picture of the Medici. He developed worldwide banking, or the European banking, and promotes the arts. What did it stress? What was its interest? Seems to be an interest in Greek and Roman studies. There's a renewed interest in that. It becomes more human-centered rather than God-centered. Religious emphasis was declined during this period, and intellectual and artistic ideas are promoted. Humanities were taught in the universities, that is, grammar, speech, poetry, history, and emphasis on learning Greek and Latin. It certainly was a golden age of art. Art reflected humanity, man's struggle with the world. The Renaissance artists did paint well-known figures such as biblical characters and biblical themes, but there will be an emphasis placed on human beings. You had studios where you had live models that would pose for paintings and sculpture. There was an interest in human anatomy. Italians were willing to spend lots of money on art because they had it to spend. Public art in Florence was organized and supported by guilds. Each city-state, Italian state, trying to outdo the other, trying to attract artists and sculptors to their particular community. Civil projects to beautify the city. Some of the well-known artists at this time, certainly you have to put Leonardo da Vinci right at the top. Not only was he an artist, but he was also an inventor, a scientist, he was a musician. He certainly was an intellectual giant. Some of his paintings exist today. Two well known are the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. Certainly he was someone during this period that is going to be a leader in a lot of different areas. Leonardo da Vinci's The Virgin of the Rocks, and well-known paintings, very valuable. This is a picture of the horse. His notebook had over 5,000 pages of it, of different things that he wrote down, ideas, sketches, and so forth. This shows a picture of the Mona Lisa. Not sure who the lady was in the picture, but certainly one of the more valuable paintings in the world today. This is the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. This Renaissance brought a certain realism and expression to the art. You can see by this particular painting, it was a religious emphasis here, Adam and Eve being expelled from the garden. This was the first nudes since classical time. The church frowned upon nudes being painted, and this will change during the Renaissance. And you can see here the classical pose, the Venus. So you have symmetry and balance reflected in the art, humanism, individualism, and certainly the Greco-Roman influence. This is a sculpture that might have been carved during ancient Greece. Renaissance Florence becomes sort of the hub. Another well-known painter, engineer, architect was Michelangelo, and he will paint the Sistine Chapel for the Pope, reflecting biblical themes. And he also, the well-known sculpture David, done by Michelangelo. Picture of the Sistine Chapel, showing Adam trying to connect with God. And here's a picture of the Sistine Chapel and all the paintings on the ceilings and walls. In terms of politics during this time, a well-known writer is going to develop. Niccolo Machiavelli is going to write The Prince, based on the Medici family. He had some ideas put forth in his book. He believed that rulers should be feared rather than loved. He believed also that complete power corrupts absolutely. He also said that the ends justify the means, that is, win at any cost if you happen to be a ruler. It's much better to be feared than loved, one of his well-known quotes. This is the Medici family, certainly a founder of the bank, and acquired great wealth. The Renaissance will move north as the Italian power falls. French and Spanish invasions, Atlantic trade routes reduced, Mediterranean importance lessened, but there's going to be a shift in power. The Renaissance in the north was a little different than that in the south and in Italy. When it spread north, certainly there was an emphasis on the classical art, architecture. Greek and Latin literature was promoted. There was a humanist in that things were written in the vernacular or people's own language. Certainly Shakespeare dealt with lowbrow comedy, bodily functions, human passions, so forth. But in the north, although these things are occurring, you have to say that Northern Europe was driven by religious reforms more than humanism. Um, and you can also say that there was a returning to Christian values, and a revolt against the authority of the church was part of this. More princes and kings were patrons of the arts. This is all part of this Northern Renaissance. So there's a difference here. Van Eyck, the Adoration of the Lamb. This is art coming out of the Northern Renaissance. I talked about the crucifixion and the Last Judgment. Certainly religious themes. Far more religious themes than you would find in the Southern Renaissance. Whedon showing the disposition of Christ after his death, placed in the tomb. Northern Renaissance, political change, greater power for the state. Revenues increase, and as they increase, greater ceremony, pomp, and circumstances, also known as blowing dollars. King Francis I of France, 1515, was certainly a patron of the arts. There were state-sponsored trading companies, military conquest. The feudal and religious systems were more subordinate to the state, far more than you would have seen in the Italian states. As far as the Northern Renaissance is concerned, kings still restricted by power of local lords. Peasants not touched really by the Renaissance values. Economics are pretty much the same. It's pretty much agricultural. More bravado, manliness. Women still more domesticated. The Renaissance isn't really going to elevate women during this time. This is not going to come until much later. Certainly there's a change in technology, doing things, adapting new ideas, creating new ways of doing things that will make society stronger. Johannes Gutenberg is going to come up with movable type, and this is going to increase literacy and make it much easier to produce books. Most of up till the movable type, books were copied by monks in monasteries, and this is going to increase the literacy rate and a chance for more people to learn new ideas. The Protestant Reformation is going to take place during this time, and we'll pick this up next time in part 2.